Welcome to the Bringing Intimacy Back show, where intimacy is real. If you desire to intimately connect with yourself, significant other, children, family, friends, community, and higher power, then this is the show for you. We explore intimate topics, inspiring life stories, spirituality, and insightful tips on strengthening relationships. The show is hosted by Dr. April and her co-host, Coach K. Let's get this episode of the Bringing Intimacy Back show started. We share with you today the secret power to intimacy to create the life you love or love the life you create. Now here's your host, Dr. April, and her co-host, Coach K.
Welcome to the Bringing Intimacy Back show, where intimacy is real. How are you doing, Coach K?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing wonderful, and I'm just doing, how can I think? I'm so excited about this show, because spirituality is such a critical aspect in our lives. And our topic today is about reviving intimacy.
Yeah, that's probably why you're so excited, because anytime you're reviving intimacy, it's exciting.
Right. But many people don't understand how that spiritual journey can help in reviving intimacy. And first, of course, that intimacy with higher power, who I call as God. And then it also impacts the intimacy you have with others. If you truly know yourself, know that here in this moment, this is where I'm supposed to be, which I know this is where I'm supposed to be. Yeah, then you can be fully present and no other worries, no concerns.
Right. And the crazy thing is, so many people want to separate these two words, spirituality and intimacy, when they should be bringing it together. And who we have today will talk about how it goes hand in hand.
Yes, definitely. Yes. We have a special guest and he's going to be top notch. But before we get into that, I want to also talk, every month we do a charity of the month. And the charity that we're doing this month is Caring Across Generation, which is such a wonderful organization because it talks about caring people at all stages, being a mom, being someone that you're helping your parents, your elderly child, your elderly brother, but it's through all generations.
And it's much needed. It's a great charity.
Right, definitely. So if you're wanting to donate money, definitely look at Caring Across Generations. And that whole part of caring and thinking about generation also ties us into this whole intimacy, because in all honesty, we're not on this earth just for ourselves.
No. And if we were, we would wither and perish pretty quickly.
Right. We all need somebody. We all need others. And there is also a force that created all this, that started all this, And I am so excited that we have, it's probably going to be one of my good friends now, Corwin, CJ Moneyway. He's going to come talk to us about the spiritual journey. Yes, and we're going to hear from him when we come back.
Unlock the secrets to success and personal growth with this transformative power and illuminating book, Both Eyes Open and Both Eyes Shut, a newly republished gem by CJ Moneyway. Join CJ on The CJ Moneyway Show, where stories behind the success come to life. Stay tuned for thoughtful dialogue with CJ, coming at the end of the year, a podcast dedicated to spiritual and personal growth. Brought to you by CJ Moneyway Entertainment, LLC. Get your copy today of Both Eyes Open and Both Eyes Shut, available on Amazon. And subscribe to the CJ Moneyway Show for more inspiring content.
Wow, as you guys see, CJ Moneyway, welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Okay, yeah, your mic is muted a little bit. Yes. So as you guys, welcome to the show. As you all see, He is a podcast host, and an author of Both Eyes Open, Both Eyes Shut. He's an entrepreneur that has been spiritually driven. Yes. Yeah. So, CJ, I know you're on this show, and when you're on this show we're talking about intimacy. One of the things that I ask everyone is, what does that definition mean to you?
Intimacy, to me, trust. It's trust. Like, you guys were saying when you was talking, that it puts everything together. It puts the relationships together. It puts your trust in God. So to me, the definition of intimacy is what I took out of it is trust.
Okay. Yes. And I'm curious, I know we're talking about the spiritual journey. Can you describe to us what your spiritual journey started and where it's at right now?
Well, my spiritual journey, I live life on the edge, and God met me where I was at. And so I would say that coming up as a child, my mother took me to church. And so, as the Bible say, train up a child in the way that they should go, and when they get old, they won't depart from it. So I thank her for that, for giving me the foundation. But when I got to a certain age, I stopped going, and I was out there doing things that I was doing, and have, as the Bible say, having a form of godliness, but denying the powers thereof. So there I was, and I believe it was in 2000 and 2002 that the Spirit began. I needed to get back in the church home. I was in Detroit at the time, and I found a church home, and I began going there. And when I came back home to Indiana, the search began more. And so me and my wife, we've been going to a local church here in Indiana, True Light International. Pastor Scott Jefferson is our pastor. We've been going there for 16 years now, and so I learned how to plant my feet.
Right. Yes. So, in talking with a lot of people, or sometimes people don't understand that call. Like you said, you're living a certain kind of way, and then something like eating at you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like we say, when God, the Bible tells us that no man can come into him unless he draw you unto him. And
Right.
so I believe that a lot of times, a lot of us have been called, but as we was talking earlier, we don't hear the call. We
Right.
we, we miss it. And so it was just at that time I had a foundation of, actually, I put it like this. Although my mother took me to church when I was younger, and then I went back to it, it was my father. He attended church, but he wasn't a church attendee. I put it that way.
Right.
But he stayed in the basement all the time, and he studied. And the Bible says, "Study to show thyself approved." And so, as a seeing a man do something like that, he had his concordance. He showed me what a concordance was, and he studied and he watched television shows. And I think that gave me inspiration too, because when you see somebody that you love in a manly stature that can put themselves to the side and trust in God, it begins filling something up in you as well. And as we all know that the head, so I see the head doing it. And so now I get a blueprint of what it is to be the man, to be the one that's out in front, because the Bible say too that if you trusted me, that I will bless your children's children. And so from a sense, I believe that my father, when he sacrificed and was studying his Bible, his concord, that God was blessing me and my brother as well.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. The other thing that I'm kind of a little bit curious about it, and even when first knew you were coming on the show. So when I created this show, God had spoken to me about this show and said, bring in intimacy back. And I was like, I don't know, God, I don't know about the word intimacy and all that, but I believe you should pray about your works and what you're doing and all that. And so your thing is CJ Moneyway.
Hmm.
I'm curious how God spoke to you about using Moneyway.
Okay, okay. I was writing my book. When
Uh-huh.
I was writing my book in 2000, and I began writing in 2000. And so as I was writing my book, I was writing stories. As I was in high school and junior high school, things of that nature, I was always into drama. My father said I probably should have went over to the school of Chicago for acting instead of trying to go off to college and wasting their money. I'm just being straight up with you. But so it's always been something, but I didn't like school. I didn't like school. But when I got to a place, like I said, I got to Detroit. And as as with Abraham, sometimes you have to get away from certain situations. You have to get away from certain things in order to hear the voice of God. And so he took me to Detroit. And when I was in Detroit, I realized I had a talent. Now, I'm not a writer. I'll just put it like that. I can create stories and I give it to somebody else to write them.
Yes.
So I'm not saying that I'm a, bona fide writer or anything of that nature, but I was creating stories. And so as I was creating stories, I started studying, I started reading the Bible more. And then the stories that I had created, the verses that I had been writing down was fitting into the stories. And so I actually did a I actually did a chapter in the book where it was actually radio based. And so I called it the CJ Moneyway Show. And so in the book, what I did was I was the host of of the CJ Moneyway show, but I was actually interviewing myself. I think a lot of people don't know that. In the book, I
Mm.
was interviewing myself. And so that's where the mantra CJ Moneyway came from, and I just stuck with it.
Mm.
Because I always wanted to create a podcast.
Right.
And so I felt as if I did do it, that was gonna be the name of it.
Wow. And then full circle, you're in that process.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. And
So
then
you,
your book, go on.
I was gonna say you created that that end result. You spoke it, you wrote it, and it is.
Yeah. The Bible say write it in plain, write the vision plain, and he who sees it, So I wrote it in plain, and it came about. And I just had somebody recently ask me, they say, well, would you like to, they wanted me to rebrand. And I say, I've kind of built that name, over time. I kind of built that name. I like it. But they wanted me to rebrand to where it fit what I was doing. I said, okay, I can do that one. But I also have another podcast that I'm gonna be working on coming out in the beginning of next year. Thoughtful dialogue with CJ.
Okay.
And as you guys niches bring it back into see I've always wanted just to talk to men. I wanted something for men. And that's what I started off doing with this podcast, but coming on Pod Match and being able to talk to people like yourselves and other entrepreneurs and other CEOs and doctors and things of that nature, it kind of changed the dynamics and the direction that I was going in. But the spirit told me get back to what I was doing. This is the launching pad. And so now that he's giving me a platform, I can actually go back and still do what he had commanded me to do in the beginning.
Hmm. Yeah. And I would truly, just in the sense of the number of sessions um, that I do on a continued basis, but there are a lot of men out there struggling.
Hmm.
They're trying to make a life for themselves and for their family. And maybe they feel just closed in, like I cannot say I'm suffering. I
Yeah,
cannot. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, like I have friends, I have associates, things of that nature. As we talk about intimacy, sometimes I think when we say friends, um, friends are somebody that you can trust. Friends are somebody that you can build something with. And a lot of times with men, what we do is we tend not to be honest with one another because for one, we don't want what we said being attacked. And a lot of times we don't want to be held accountable for our actions. Like I'm the type of person, and I'm gonna be straight up honest with you. I'm the type of person, if you come tell me something, and if I don't believe what you saying, I'm gonna let you know. And a lot of times we don't want to be held accountable for somebody telling us what we want to believe. And so you tell people what you want them to hear, but it may not be the truth. And so therefore, when somebody speak truth to you, you tend to kind of like shy away from them because you want somebody to tell you what you want to hear. I'm not that type of person.
Mm-hmm.
That's necessary. That's absolutely necessary, especially when it can come from another man. Because even, you know, it is just different coming from a woman sometimes, because especially if you're in a certain feeling, you know that if it's coming from a man, hey, I've been in your shoes. I'm a man as well. And I have to say that this is not where it is.
Yeah.
So as many more men that we have that can speak to the vein of intimacy and even tapping into the realm of spirituality with intimacy, I think is super important. And especially if we can find that connection between the two.
Yeah.
How did you find the connection between the two, or how do you define that connection between the two?
Well, how I defined it was even after going to church, it's more than just going to church, and listening to the pastor preach. And I know that there was some seasons that God isolated me. I'll put it that way. I was just isolated. So I'm used to not being around people. So, when it came down to you being by yourself and you had when COVID came, I was good with that because I had already started a pace where I didn't have to be around people all the time. I didn't have to be in the streets, running the streets and going out drinking and smoking and doing things. I was removed from that type of situation. And so I was in some seasons where I was able to have an intimate relationship with God while I was reading, while I was listening. I go for weeks riding in the car back and forth to work without listening to the radio because I was training my ear that when he speaks to me, I can hear. Because if I got all this clutter going on, if I can't relax unless I'm listening to R&B, rap music, or some gospel music, which a lot of people feel inspires them, then I'm still missing the bigger picture. Because the Bible say that man can't eat by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. So if I don't have the word of God in me, I don't know how to combat the enemy. And so when I was in these seasons, not saying that I'm a Bible thumper, that I read the Bible constantly or daily or every day. No, but the time that I did spend reading the Bible, the time that I did spend with him, it was feeding me. And so now the things that I was taking in then, what's in you will come out of you. And so that's how things begin changing in my life from the inside out. And so that was my spiritual journey as far as with intimacy.
Okay. I can definitely relate. I know there've been times in my life when I felt like everything was taken away. Remember when a relationship ended, everything was like taken away and I felt like I had nothing. And I call these moments boot camp. Yeah, where God puts me in boot camp, basically, and there's no other distraction. You know what I'm saying? And I'm out there crying out to him. And that when there's nothing else, you can truly hear that communication back. And it's in those moments where he's really taking things out of me that don't need to be there, strengthening some of the good things. I see it as a boot camp because then he later on throws me back out there. You know what I'm saying? And I'm much more prepared. Yeah.
And another thing, Coach K, I can say in my spiritual journey, I went through some things, as far as life situations. I went through some stuff. And a lot of it, I had to realize that I was the one that caused a lot of it. And so that's taking accountability. And you can trace accountability. And one of the reasons, Coach K, Doctor, one of the reasons that a lot of people don't take accountability because we can trace it all the way back to the book of Genesis about taking accountability. And because one day I was reading, I said, Lord, why is things the way that it is today? What, as far as men, why? And so he took me back to the book of well, I stay in Genesis all the time anyway, but to the beginning, chapter 3. And I was reading about uh Adam and Eve and when they ate from the tree. And then when God came looking for them in the cool of the day, it say that he asked Adam, where was he at? And he asked him about the tree. And Adam say, well, it was this woman that you gave me to, saying to eat from the tree. And it showed me right there, I had to stop, and it showed me right there, Adam was the first man that didn't take accountability for his own action.
So it's traced back to some deep rooted.
Yeah, it's deep rooted. That's why a lot of men, that's why we don't want to take accountability for a lot of things that we do. And until you start taking accountability for your actions, you would never grow. You would never move on. You can never satisfy your spouse because you still have some things inside of you that you don't want to revisit and that you don't want to come out, but it's there. And so it affects relationships. It affects friendships. It affects your relationships with your children because there are some things that you have to deal with and learn that, you know what, this was on me. And then you can move on because now the people that you hurt in the process, you can apologize and move on. Whether they accept it or not, that's on them. But as long as you said it say that if you have a alt with your brother, go to the elders. Go to the people and apologize. If they don't accept it, that's on them. But you ain't got it all for you.
I can appreciate when both of you and Dr. April spoke when we were talking about the intimacy and spirituality piece, that you both spoke about yourselves. You both made it very clear that in the beginning and at the root, it has less to do with outside and other people versus building that intimacy within yourself, which you said at the beginning, that trust, because that's one of the pieces that intimacy is. So when you're able to build that and trusting you, because at the end of it all, God lives inside of us. So when we can trust ourselves, then we can trust the energies that we trust to be our higher powers and to make those great decisions. And even when they're not great, being able to say, you know what, whoops, messed that one up, holding yourself accountable. What do I do next?
Yeah. And I'm going to ditto on that. And then I know CJ started this off about how he watched his father. And when we learn to take accountability, that impacts our generations. Yeah, because the children are watching. Yeah. And in this world today, as we know, people are not taken accountable for their actions.
Not only are they not taking accountability for their actions, they don't want to listen to wise counseling because we have so much stuff going on in society now where it's distracting us from the things that, and to be honest, that was my book entitled, because when it came to me, it say that we see the things that we shouldn't see, but don't see the things that we need to see. And what we need to see is God. The Bible say that that's nothing more important than seeing the face of God. That's what we need to see. And so, and that's what people, and that's what we drifting off more and more from, is trying to have a relationship with God because we're thinking that everything that we do is something of our own. The Bible say, lean not into thy own understanding, but let God correct your path, straighten your path. But we don't want to do that because we, in a sense, and these are things, these are principles, as you were saying, Dr. April, that these are principles that we're missing in the households, and so that's why generation, because it just didn't start. That just make be clear. The generation that we're in right now and the way that things going, it just didn't start there. It started from generations before because my parenting with my children is not like my mother and father was with me, and they parenting with me probably wasn't like it was with their mother and father with them. And so on down the road, it has become weaker and weaker because not saying that I'm just saying as a whole, not that every family is weak, but it's become weaker and weaker each generation because we're missing principles. We're missing things that we need to be talking about our children about. We're missing things where we need to be setting an example for them. Like if my son see me reading and writing, although he may not participate in that right now, but just like you said, Dr. April, when I saw my father doing it,
Right.
if I could see somebody that I love and respect and admire that can put things to, so you got the Bible say that we have to deny ourselves daily because we're going to go through temptations daily all the time. But when your children can see you do things, then not, it may not be that they're going to pick it up right now. They're going to pick it, but they picking stuff up. It's a sponge. I was just sitting there watching my son. I've been watching. Actually, I noticed it last night, and he had been doing it for a minute. I used to play the game all the time, and so I used to create men and create my seasons and create GM because I'm working with numbers and trying to do this. And so I see him doing it, and like I say, he had been doing it for a while, but it didn't dawn on me until today when I seen him doing it that he had been watching me do it on there. And so now he has an interest to be more aware of what he's doing while he's playing the game. And so the things that we do, even when we don't know that they're paying attention, they are.
Wow. Yes. And I just love how you, now I understand your title of Both Eyes Open. That sometimes you put that we go to things that we shouldn't go to for answers or solutions. And, I know 50 million people who go to social media or, I don't know, porn or whatever. But then our eyes are shut on things that we should be paying attention to. Yeah. So if our people out there listening and they're lost or don't know where to turn and they would like to connect with you or get your book, let us know. How can people connect with you?
Well, the book is on Amazon.
Okay.
The book is on Amazon. I'm on Facebook, Arthur Corwin Johnson, Instagram, C.J Moneyway. I can be connected on all social media platforms. You can email me at c.jmoneyway@gmail.com or my website. You can leave me a message on my website. I'm not hard to find.
Very good. And again, the name of the book is Both Eyes Open and Both Eyes Shut.
Yes.
Yes. And your podcast coming up is what, CJ?
The CJ Moneyway Show.
All right, then. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show. We really do appreciate you, and you're welcome back anytime.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, good. Yes. We'll take a break and we'll be back in a moment.
Are you seeking quality counseling for your child? At Cape Coral therapists in Sarasota, our skilled therapists, Johanna Calvo and Nicholas Pujol, specialize in children counseling for all ages. We provide personalized care, ensuring your children receive the support they need. Open 7 days a week, we offer counseling in Spanish, Creole, Czech, and English, making quality care accessible to everyone. Contact us today and take the first step towards a brighter tomorrow for your children.
Welcome back to the Bringing Intimacy show, where intimacy is real. Yes, that was so wonderful in the sense of talking about that spiritual journey.
Absolutely. And I think anytime that we can have any resource that is male centered and another place where men can feel comfortable reaching out, I'm always for that, because while we're both fully capable of supporting men, there's nothing like having another person that looks just like you that can really has possibly been through the same thought process as you to support you. So that was, I'm glad we had that. And I can appreciate that the entire time that we were talking about intimacy today, it truly centered on internal self, the core.
Right, definitely. And I just want to say out to our listeners, if you're struggling and you're like, I'm not sure why this and this and this is happening, you may be on a spiritual journey. Chances are, I would say you are on a spiritual journey. Yeah. And so that means you need to connect and figure out. And one extreme helpful way is spending time quietly, listening to that inner spirit. Yeah,
Absolutely. Whenever we do our couples yoga class, I always tell people at the very beginning, I have this spiel, but there may be times where it seems like I'm talking to you, and I say a lot of times, quiet those voices.
Mm.
And I can see when people's shoulders kind of go down and they truly relax, because you have to quiet those outside voices to be able to hear that one that's internal. So spending time just in solitude, that's a part of a spiritual journey. It's not always about the noise and the rituals and the, listening to something. It's truly sitting with you.
Right. And that internal voice, like you said, quieting, that internal voice doesn't put you down.
That's right.
It's for your best interest. So if you're hearing things that have put you down, that says, I'm not good enough, I don't matter, that is someone else in your past or something that you were taught. That's not the internal voice. So like you said, you got to quiet that to hear the internal voice.
Yes.
Yes. So what's coming up, Coach K?
We have some great shows coming up. So on July 25th, we have Your Life, Your Rules with Melissa Crook. On August the 1st, already August is here, we have Overcoming Erectile Dysfunction with men's sexual health coach, Ken Schaefer. On August the 8th, we have a look back at the number one reason men and women fail in love with Andre Paradis. And then on August the 15th, we have How to Heal and Strengthen Relationship Post-Trauma with a special guest, Marissa Flood. That's going to be a good one.
Yes, thank you. Yes, well, this has been the Bringing Intimacy show. And if you like us, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. And we will see you guys next week. Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Bringing Intimacy Back, where intimacy is real. You can also find us at bringingintimacyback.com, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Dr. April Brown's 7-book series, Improving Intimacy, is now on Amazon. We'll see you next Thursday at 3:30 p.m. Don't forget to follow, share, and subscribe.